Hi everyone, my name is Helen and I'm a volunteer with the Poland Stephen Spiritist Center. And today's topic is based on the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 7. And well, there's several items that I utilize, so all chapter 7, I'll put it that way. I'm always also using the Spirit's book as a reference for this conversation today. So before we start, let's connect with our mentors and guides so we can make the most of our conversation today. Okay, so if you want to join me, I'm going to close my eyes. And as we relax through deep breaths, we calm our minds, we connect to our hearts, and we elevate our thoughts and our vibrations to connect to our spiritual mentors and guides and the spiritual mentors for the Poland Stephen Spiritist Center, asking that we are inspired during today's discussion to truly learn what's going to be discussed here today and put that in practice in our daily lives so we can slowly transform ourselves and walk towards development and growth. So please be with us, assisting us and inspiring us. So be it. Like I said, the topic is in chapter 7 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, and the title of the chapter is Blessed are the Poor in Spirit. So we're going to start by clarifying what that meant, that term meant, and it comes from the first thing that Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. I had never read the whole sermon in one sitting. Like I had seen all the little bits and pieces that he said in the sermon, but I had never stopped to read the sermon completely. And if you haven't done so either, do that. And despite us knowing that many things were lost in translation and things were changed for different interests, however, it is so interesting when you can look at the whole sermon and step back and look at the main themes that Jesus covered. And we'll see how that contributes to what we were going to discuss here today, because the first thing he said was the topic here today. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So like I said, we're going to try to understand what that meant, poor in spirit, what the difference and differentiate between poor in spirit as meant by Jesus and spiritually poor, which is something completely different, or spiritually ignorant or ignorant. It has nothing to do with what Jesus meant in poor in spirit. And after we do that, we will ask ourselves, and I'm going to ask the question now so we can start thinking, why are the poor in spirit? Why did he say that the kingdom of heaven is theirs? And this could go on for a long time, because we would also have to explore what the kingdom of heaven might have meant. Jesus, I don't know if you paid attention, but he tried to make links or analogies to the kingdom of heaven, because it's not a place, it's more of a state. So he used many different analogies, and he would say, the kingdom of heaven is this, the kingdom of heaven is similar to that, the kingdom of heaven is within. So we're not going to go into that because that would take a whole different chat. But we're going to see what he meant by poor of spirit, and why is it that the kingdom of heaven will be theirs. So if we look at that chapter in the gospel, chapter 7, the spirits explain that poor in spirit, and I'm going to read, are people who have simplicity of heart and humility of spirit. And for a long time there was a debate because they associated the idea of poor in spirit as being ignorant, that they didn't have much within them. And it's exactly the contrary. That wasn't what Jesus meant. And we know that people that are undergoing challenging situations, and that maybe in this life they might be ignorant of intellectual knowledge or even studies, but that doesn't mean that they're not wise, because true knowledge we carry with us from one lifetime to another. And I'll give an example. I remember clearly when I was quite young, my uncle had gone to this very remote place, and when he came back, he said that he had met, and my uncle was discussing a topic related to illness, and it was a group of people who were university professors, and there was this humble man, in the sense that it seemed like he never been schooled or anything, and they were talking about illnesses, and he was around there. He said, illnesses, we have to think that it all begins inside us, like in our minds, in our spirits. And he had never studied anything. And now if you look at science, and if you look at the Spirit's teachings, they say that the last place illness manifests is in the physical body. It has started way before in our minds and in our spirits. So he was right, even though he probably had never read a book. I don't even know if he read. So knowledge, true knowledge, translated into wisdom, we carry with us. So Jesus didn't mean, when he said poor in spirit, people who were financially challenged, or who didn't attend school, or who didn't possess anything. He was talking about humility. So that's what poor in spirit was meant. Now, spiritually poor is a different thing. And it might be that the person entitles themselves as somebody who's spiritual, but it really comes back to the Sermon on the Mount. Because there Jesus clearly states that it's not what exterior that matters. And we'll see that in different places. He's saying the same thing. It's not what you say, when he says, not all that say, Lord, Lord, will see the kingdom of heaven, but that who does the will of my Father. So he was saying, it's not what you say. It doesn't matter if you say beautiful things. For example, me, I'm here and I'm saying something that I studied. It's not because I'm saying it that I'm actually transforming myself. So if I don't put what I'm saying into practice, it is useful, because maybe somebody that's listening to me will put it more into practice than me, and I'll be helping, like I'll be contributing in that sense. But for myself, what I have to do is, besides coming here and discussing this, I have to really put it into practice in my life. And that is clear in the Sermon on the Mount. So spirituality and poor spirituality, or the title was spiritual poverty, has to do with our strong connection to our egos and things related to the ego, and perhaps not seeing things that we have to see within ourselves. That is more related to being spiritually poor. And it doesn't matter if you study anything spiritual, if you are affiliated to any philosophy or religion. It really matters, and that's why the Sermon on the Mount is so beautiful. It matters not what you're saying, it matters what you're doing. And what you're doing, he even emphasizes, I mean Jesus, that you do within yourself. So it's not about exposing or showing that you're doing, because that comes into pride that we'll be talking about in a few minutes, or vanity. It's about truly looking into yourself and seeing what is it that I have to change, and doing the work. And an interesting fact is, and if you Google Gandhi on the Sermon on the Mount, what he said about that, people were always trying to convert Gandhi for some reason to be a follower of the Christ. And Gandhi received many Bibles, many things, and he said, and you can find that if you Google that, Gandhi in the Sermon on the Mount, in reputable websites that are related to Gandhi truly, and not something that's made up. So look at the ones that are really from a foundation or something related to Gandhi. He said that if people who proclaimed that we're following Christ actually did what he taught, he would consider calling himself a Christian. However, what he observed is that people said things, but they didn't really do what Christ has taught. And he also said on the Sermon on the Mount that if people had given him the Sermon on the Mount for him to read and for him to interpret the way that he believes it is, he said he would say he is a Christian, because he was very, very impressed by the Sermon on the Mount and also by the teachings of Paul. He said it was really, really profound teaching, very linked to everything that he had learned in his spiritual learnings. So, and as spiritists, we know that the truth, it permeates the different belief systems, and some see it more clearly and some see it less clearly, but it permeates, and divine truth is equal everywhere. So it doesn't matter the vehicle that's bringing it. And the spirits told us that Jesus was the greatest model that walked on earth. So we know that what he said, even though it was distorted, the essence is divine truth, isn't it? So going back, spiritually poor is more related to aspects of pride as opposed to humility. And we're going to see that in several parts, both of the Spirit's book and the Gospel, they really focus on humility. And Jesus, in the Sermon on the Mount, you'll see that all the blessings, like blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are let me read here, those who mourn, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who have hunger and thirst for righteousness. All that are talking about people who are undergoing challenges. And we know that a person that's undergoing challenge, they're more open to listening to things because they're seeking a solution. Whereas a person that's very comfortable in their point of view and things around them are very comfortable as well, it might be a little bit more challenging for them to be open to listening to something completely different to what they're used to, because they're okay. They don't want to change much around them. So that is a one thing that when people associated poor of spirit to people who were suffering and who were humble, it's it's more because the followers of the Christ were the ones who were ready for the message. And the ones who were ready for the message, many of them were going through extreme challenges and were seeking something, some form of truth that could give meaning to the suffering that they were going through and the challenges that they were going through. Where opposed to that, people who thought that they knew a lot and they were comfortable and they were privileged at the time, that didn't make much sense, and they didn't look at it with care. But we know that there's reincarnation, and we come and we're born again and again, and slowly we start to learn the teachings that Jesus left us back in the past, isn't it? So that's the difference. Poor in spirit is really humility, being humble, and that means, like the Spirit said, simplicity of heart and humility of spirit, as opposed to spiritually poor, which really means that more connecting to the ego and thinking more of self in a defensive manner, in a way that it's detrimental to other people, and having pride and selfishness. And on that, the spirits, in the Spirits book, in question 785, Kardec asks the spirits, what is the greatest obstacle to progress? And the spirit says, the spirits that were responding, pride and selfishness. And they continue saying, I am referring to moral progress, since intellectual progress is always occurring. So we notice that pride and selfishness doesn't necessarily stop the intellectual progress, because sometimes you can see that when a person takes pride in their work, they might go deeper into that, and they might be pursuing something out of pride, but they're still progressing intellectually. Whereas morally, that's what the spirits tell us, and that's what we hear here in Jesus saying in Matthew 5:3, that the poor in spirit are the ones who the kingdom of heaven is theirs, which is the opposite, isn't it? So the opposite of pride and selfishness. So if we look throughout the Spirit's book and throughout the gospel, we will see many, many parts talking about pride and selfishness as the means of keeping us away from truth. Because we're so sure of ourselves when we're proud, in a bad sense, in a negative sense, that we do not see what's in front of us. We don't want to see that there's something greater, that we are really, it's not that we don't have value, we have immense value, but there's so many different things that are greater than us. And we have a wrong understanding of what being humble and what humility might be. And I want to share with everyone a definition that I thought it was very, very beautiful. It was this lady, she was very committed to social change, and she was working around the globe to promote peace and to promote a series of things in a very peaceful way, because that was her way to act. And she got an award. And she said that once in a while she met the Dalai Lama in some events. And in this event, she had just won this prize. And it was a global prize recognizing her achievements. And she was very, very happy with that. And she said that the Dalai Lama walked to her and whispered into one of her ears in a way that nobody could hear. He said, "Congratulations, you are an amazing human being." And she said that immediately she felt it, like her ego inflated because she's an aware person. She said, I felt like, oh my God, I'm so important. Immediately she felt that. And And while she was that, he came to her other ear and said, just remember that everyone else is as special as you. And then she said, oh my God, that's the best definition of humility that I've ever learned. And it was brilliant because she's a very, very aware person, isn't it? Because she was aware that she felt that strong pride in a negative sense, like she felt superior to others. But at the same time, when he said, everyone else in the world is as special as you, she said, okay, I understand that I have value and what I did is extremely valuable, but everyone in the world is as valuable as me in the eyes of God. And I put that because it might be that she achieved something globally, but to the eyes of God, we're just children in different levels of learning, but he loves us equally. And I always say that, but that's what I truly believe. So now we saw poor in spirit, and we saw spiritually poor or spiritual poverty, which has more to do with things that are related to the ego, like I said. And we know that pride and humility are always playing within us. Pride, things that come up, like the things that we feel, are never bad in itself. It's just how we exteriorize that or how that follows. So it's okay for you to feel proud of yourself when you achieved something. The exaggeration would be to feel superior to others because exclusively of that, thinking that others are less, then that's the problem. And why would it be, now that we saw this, why would it be that Jesus said that the poor in spirit, they would be the ones that the kingdom of heaven are theirs? So very briefly, like I said, the kingdom of heaven is not a place, although people at the time, and some people still do think that kingdom of God is, heaven is a place. And we know that spirits that have similar ways of thinking, they tend to come together. And it might be that in some places that feels like heaven because you have the spirits that are there. They live in a certain way, they think in a certain way, they communicate with each other in a certain way. And that characterizes what we might think of heaven, because everything is based in love, in harmony, in peace, in non-violence. Whereas if people are disrespectful towards each other, each one is thinking only of themselves and thinking the other's attack is there to get them, and that there's this kind of environment of argument, that might constitute hell. So it might be that in certain places it seems like it's a place. But what Jesus referred, and that is in my understanding, I'm still a student of the Spiritist philosophy, and I always ask the spiritual guys to give me as much inspiration as possible to convey to my learning level the best, but I think that the kingdom of heaven is more of a state and a connection with divinity. So why would it be that the humble, or the people who are humble and like simple in this term, why would the kingdom of heaven be theirs? Who here has tried to teach something, say you're an expert in your field, and tried to teach that which you are expert in to someone who thinks they know everything? I wonder how that went. Probably not very well. So when you try to teach something that you are expert in to someone who believes they know everything, they will always think that they will try to find a flaw in what you're saying, and they will always think that they have a better way, even though that's not their specialty, That's not what their focus is. So when we have this problem of thinking that we know everything, we know more than others, we're superior, we are unlikely to listen to what an actual specialist comes to tell us. And what happens to people who are humble? And I like to associate humbleness with curiosity. Because a person who's humble has a great sense of curiosity. They understand that they don't know everything. Although they might know a lot, they understand that they don't know everything. And they're curious to learn and to see different point of views. We grow through seeing different point of views. Because it might be that we're stuck in a certain point of view and somebody comes and presents a different one. And then you look at that through a different lens and you say, okay, this is a missing piece that I've been looking for. So a person who's humble tends to be curious about things and open to learning. And therefore, when a teaching comes towards a person who has that, they will listen and they will see if that suits what their values are, and if that will help them in any way, and they'll keep it if that's truth. If that doesn't serve, they just simply see it as a different point of view that doesn't serve them. So when we think of that, how likely is it that this person who's curious and who's accepting that they know just as much as they know, and there's still a lot to learn, how likely is it that they will look at questions of ethics and morals within them and question if there's anything that they have to change? Or if somebody says something to them, they look and say, let me see if this person has a reason here. If they're criticizing me, does it have any reason why they would be criticizing me? And so they're more open to change. And people that are more open to change will progress faster, isn't it? Because true change, and that's one of my understandings of what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, happens deep inside us. Even if people outside us, they can't really tell, we are transforming from within. And it's not important that people approve us from outside. It's important that we do the work that's inside, aligning ourselves with the teachings and the example of the great spiritual leaders, and in this case, Jesus. So now that we're almost coming to an end, let's just briefly recap everything that we said. And you can further this and you can dive into this topic on your own. Like I said, you can go to the Gospel, chapter 7, the Gospel according to Spiritism. The Spirit's book, the question that I said was 785 of the Spirit's book, okay, where they talk about what is holding us back from progress. So Jesus said that blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And the poor in spirit, it might have been an idiomatic expression at the time, that when we bring it to our time, it might cause some confusion. But if you look at the whole Sermon on the Mount and the context of everything that Jesus brought us, it meant much more than just being somebody simple and or ignorant. It meant somebody that really is humble. And like I said, people that might be ignorant or might be going through challenges, they're more open to changes, but that's not exactly what Jesus meant. It wasn't just for them. It was for everyone that felt that curiosity and that understanding of their position in the world, and that they knew, but there's still a lot to learn. And he said that the kingdom of heaven is theirs because they're more likely to connect with the divinity in themselves, which is the kingdom of heaven in us, is that divine part or divinity. So that's what I had to bring for today. I would recommend that if you have time to read the Sermon on the Mount. It's really amazing, and you will see how very, very modern thinkers and doctors, scientists, philosophers, they are saying the same things using different words. And so we had that, and we have that blessing of having that knowledge. So I truly recommend that everyone that can to read the Sermon on the Mount. So we'll finish here. And before we finish and we start with our vibrations, the Paul and Stephen Spiritist Center has several charitable activities that we run, and that we either run or we fund. And the way we do that is through donations to the causes. So one of them is breakfast for the homeless. And every last Sunday of each month, the Paul and Stephen Spiritist Center goes and distributes little breakfast kits that people can have as a breakfast. And also during winter, we do also distribute to the homeless gloves and beanies and scarves and all sorts of things, even blankets, socks, so they can really survive the cold. And if you feel like that's a cause that you want to support, you can donate. You can find the link in our website, which is, if you look it up, there's a link, I believe, also on our Facebook page. And we also support charities in other parts of the world. And now specifically, we're donating to a charity in Brazil because of COVID. People are actually going through hunger in Brazil, unfortunately. So if that's a cause that also speaks to your heart, you can contribute, and you just write down in the reference, you can either say breakfast pack or charities or anything that you want related to the charities, okay? And we thank you very much if that's something that speaks to your heart. Now, we'll finalize vibrating for people that we care about and that might be going through a difficult situation. So if you have people that you love or that you care about, just think of their names while we're doing the vibrations, and I'm sure the spiritual mentors will attend to that, okay? So let's close our eyes and relax and thank the spiritual mentors for these minutes that we were here discussing this topic and such an important teaching that was brought to us. And as we do so, we connect with our mentors and guides, spiritual mentors, and we feel from our hearts that energies of love and harmony are coming together. And we ask the good spirits to take this energy wherever it's needed the most, and we vibrate for those that we have in our minds at the moment that might be facing challenges, illnesses, loss, some sort of trauma. May they benefit from this energy, from this love that we send. We also vibrate this intention and this love all around the planet, and to all the spiritual leaders and the political leaders and all the people that are well known. May they understand the important role that they play, and may they connect with the higher forces of the universe and align their goals and what they're trying to achieve with higher purposes so they can help the rest of the population. We also vibrate much love for those who have suffered loss, those who have severe mental health issues. May they have hope and faith that everything will improve. We also vibrate for all those who we don't see eye to eye. May they have peace, and may they have much love, and may they grow in their journey. And we bring this back to our family and friends. And we finish vibrating much love for ourselves, so that we are a small beacon of light wherever it is that we go. Thanks, God. So be it. So thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you the next time. Thank you. Bye.